You see Nico Collins up top by himself, and he could run those deep in cuts right there.
Mechie in motion. Stroud back in the end zone. He's got to be careful. It's a safety. Wow. Harold Landry. We haven't called his name that often today, but he comes up with a defensive stop of the game. A 5-point ball game, and Tennessee will get the ball.
Landry working against Titus Howard with the bull rush. Stroud thought he could escape, not able to do it, and the Titans defense makes the biggest play of the game.
And that did essentially end the game. I know on CBS moments later they said, hey, the game is really not over yet. It's not over. And I'm like, guys, it's over. It was over right then and there. Titans beat the Texans yesterday. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. And we are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
I got to tell you, I've never seen anything like yesterday's game. Now, I've never seen a lot of things that have happened before, and it's like, it feels like, wow, I mean, but I've seen a lot of football games. I've seen a lot of football games. The Titans allowed the Texans an 80-yard opening kickoff and gave up a touchdown on the first play of the game. I mean, I heard that in the car coming back from the award-winning pregame show. And as I heard the 80-yard kickoff return, I'm listening to Mike Keith call it, right? And he's like, Dameon Pierce gets the ball in the end zone. He takes it to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, to the 20, to the 25, to the 30, to the 35, 40, 50, 40, 30. I'm like, oh, boy. I'm like, oh, boy. This might be a 59-0 2.0 Patriot kind of game. And when that happens at Houston, that's the kind of game that gets everybody fired. But the Titans punched back. They didn't give in. It was a game. They gave up 8 sacks. Not sure I've seen that very often. They threw a pick 6. They fumbled a punt. They had a fumble in plus territory. And they still won the game. I have never seen anything like that in my life. And the amount of people that were like, well, we sacked Joe Burrow 8 times in a playoff game and lost, Jared. I'm like, that's one of like the 8 things that happened yesterday, the 8 sacks. But it wasn't like the Titans had an 80-yard punt return in that playoff game against Cincinnati. If they had had an 80-yard kickoff return, they probably would have won the game. And again, as improbable as that was, the Titans were the better team yesterday. Top to bottom, the Titans were the better team. And the meaning of yesterday's win, the real true meaning, it's not about Levis. It's not about the draft position. It's not about the AFC South. It's not about the record. It's not about the real true meaning is Brian Callahan probably saved his job yesterday. Look, with Amy, there's no telling what she might do. Again, she fired John Robinson roughly 2 years ago. Today, I mean, I think it was probably 2 years and a couple of weeks. Just fired him. 7-5, 61% of his games. Again, there were some issues there. He wasn't perfect. But again, with Amy, there is no telling. Mike Malarkey won a playoff game, and he wasn't safe. Mike Vrabel crushed Jacksonville in the last game of the year last year, and he wasn't safe. But with Amy, the one thing everybody knows is this was Houston, and the game was in Houston. The Houston Chronicle ran a story about how Amy Adams Strunk had an Oilers belt buckle on yesterday. Jeffrey Simmons said after the game, she had tears in her eyes. We talked on Friday. Hannah McNair, the owner's wife, talked all that trash last week. And when you talk all that trash about, hey, Houston is ours now, and we don't need the Titans, and they're just the Titans, duh. fan, but I don't care. That's not really directed at the Titan fans because, again, how many of you Titan fans actually care what the owner of the Texans' wife has to say? That was directed at Amy. And you may think it's crazy that it's personal between the Titans ownership and the city of Houston. But watch the Football Life documentary, Houston 93, and you'll know all you need to know. Bud Adams wanted a stadium. The city of Houston was mad at him and said no. He left to Nashville, and then they built the McNair's Stadium. Bud Adams wanted $100 million or $200 million to build a stadium. They ended up spending $1 billion to build somebody else's stadium. It's personal. And it was personal last year when the Titans wore the Oiler throwbacks against the JV Texans and Case Keenum came in and beat them. And I think that game, as much as anything else, hurt Mike Vrabel. Yesterday, everybody thought the Titans were the sacrificial lamb, probably including the Titans owner. She probably didn't show up to the game yesterday thinking they were going to win. And they won. And not only did they win, they really embarrassed the Texans. Every punch, there was a counterpunch. And so I don't even know where to start when it comes to how improbable, given what we've seen, everything that's happened this season was. And yes, big picture with the draft doesn't necessarily fit with where I wanted this thing to go. And with the hierarchy of the organization, general manager, president of football operations, whatever that means, who knows? But it was nice on a Sunday to see the Titans play competitive football. It was nice to see a competitive football game. It was nice to see Jeffrey Simmons dominating on the interior of the Texan line. That was a Jeff Simmons superstar performance yesterday. It was nice to see the young quarterback, after he makes a horrendous mistake, hustle his ass down the field trying to make a tackle, and then come back and put you in the end zone. Levis had his moments, good and bad. The offensive line is still horrendous. And the special teams, Lord help all of us. But you know what? Again, not that we'll remember this in the big picture, because a random win over the Houston Texans probably doesn't mean as much to me or as much to an average Titan fan as it does the owner. But the Texans were getting a little too cocky. Their players, their coaches, their owner, their fans, they were getting a little too cocky. And they were due a tush spanking. It wasn't that long ago that they were the laughingstock of the league. They're acting the nouveau riche, like all of a sudden they're entitled to greatness. And it was time for a reality check for the Texans. Jacksonville got the same kick in the teeth last year. Houston's getting it this year. But I said on Friday, I had no idea if Brian Callahan was on the hot seat or not. I have no idea. And with this owner, there really is no way of saying what she's going to do or what she's not going to do. This time last year, there was a story in The Athletic. Diana Rossini put it out saying that Vrabel wasn't going anywhere. And I said the next day on Black Friday, the Black Friday special, 11 to 1 will be on the air 11 to 1 Friday. And I said, yeah, I don't buy it because I don't trust the Titans. And she fired him. People around here were shocked because, again, with Amy, there's no telling. And I said on Friday, I have no idea if Brian Callahan is on the hot seat or not. But it would behoove him, as far as his tenure as Titans/Oilers coach is concerned, it would behoove him to win this game in Amy's backyard, to the city that gave her family the middle finger. It would behoove him to win. And you got to give him credit because he did. And I think that when push comes to shove, a win like that is the kind of win, or a loss like that with Mike Vrabel at home against the JV Texans and the Oiler throwback, Case Keenum at quarterback, Those are the kind of wins and losses that either keep Amy from pulling the trigger or give her the green light. So kudos to the Titans, but most importantly, kudos to Brian Callahan. Because who knows if Brian Callahan was going to be a one-and-done coach. There is no way to know around here what's going to happen. But I feel pretty safe in saying that right now, that Monday afternoon phone call with Amy that he told us all about after the Packer loss when Malik came in here and lit him up, bet it's a lot more cheery now. So congratulations to Brian Callahan, and congratulations to Amy Adams Strunk. If there is anything to take away from that unfathomable, unpredictable performance, it's that those are the kind of wins that keep you out of trouble. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number today. 615-737-1025, your reaction. And we haven't been doing this a lot lately, but it is time for some game balls. Who earned them? We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
This will be the 10th play of the drive. Titans have the fewest 10-play drives in the NFL. They're going for it all. They've got it all. Westbrook-Ikhine. He beat Derek Stingley. It's 38 yards, and the Titans take the lead.
Just a mistake in this secondary for the Texans, something they don't do. They're one of the best teams in the league at not giving up big pass plays. Watch the safety here, and then just watch Ikhine run straight down the field. Nothing fancy here, but the safety stops and bites, and he's wide open over the top.
How about 6 touchdowns in the last 7 games for Westbrook-Ikhine?
Okay, time to give away the game balls. We've done this forever, even though Kaharski doesn't like it. But when you win, you get an offensive game ball, a defensive game ball, a special teams game ball. Offense. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine gets a game ball. I'm sorry. And look, that was a great design by Brian Callahan, and it was a great throw by Will Levis, and apparently it was a little tweak on something they had done. So if the Texans had studied it on tape, they kind of threw them for a wrinkle. NWI just shows up. That's it. And I think yesterday when he caught that touchdown pass, it kind of hit me that, and I know he's a free agent at the end of the year, but I'm ready for NWI to be a starting wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. I'd like to re-sign NWI. Now, look, there's going to be a market for him out there because when you catch 7 touchdowns in a season, somebody's going to call and say, hey, we think you can catch some touchdowns for us. And so I look at the Titans, and again, NWI is not under contract for next year, and you're not going to franchise tag him. So that's not really an option. You got to work out a deal. But I'm okay. If the Titans go into the draft, or I should say free agency, but you'll have to sign NWI as part of free agency. If they go into this saying, okay, Ridley and NWI, and on you go. Because at some point, his consistency not only needs to be rewarded, but it also needs to be recognized. There aren't a lot of Titan players that have had the kind of seasons he's had. And I know. Well, he's just catching bombs, and he's just... Last year, I talked to Charlie Weiss on Sirius XM, the old Patriots offensive coordinator. And I said, you had a second-year quarterback in Brady, and you really worked with him and put things together. And what would your advice to these young coaches, the Shane Waldrons of the world? What would your advice be to those guys? And he said, find out what a young quarterback does well and just do it over and over and over again. Don't try to do everything. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. And I watched the Will Levis highlights because I kind of wanted to say, okay, what does Will Levis do? What can Will Levis do that would make it so that that's what Brian Callahan needs to call over and over and over again? But as I watched the highlight reel, every throw was to Hopkins or NWI. Almost every single one. There was one to Spears. There were 2 to Chig. There was 1 to Wiley. There was 1 to Henry. But pretty much every big throw Levis made last year, Hopkins or NWI. And because we've got to see what we have in Treylon Burks, the Titans buried NWI on the bench. And I think NWI can be a starting receiver in the NFL. And he's got chemistry with your quarterback. Though, again, I'm not ready to commit to Will Levis being the quarterback next year. So Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, for the consistency this season, NWI gets a game ball. There were a lot of options as far as the offensive game ball was concerned. But I don't know if I can give the quarterback the game ball when he threw a terrible pick six in the second half. Don't think I can give the running back the game ball when he fumbled the ball in plus territory. Chig had a nice play. PT had his best game of the year. But I feel pretty comfortable in saying NWI gets the offensive game ball. Defense, this was the easiest one, and that includes special teams, which is pretty easy. How about the game Jeffrey Simmons had yesterday? Now, the one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to overlook the fact that the Texans' offensive line is atrocious. I mean, just atrocious. I was looking at the Pro Football Focus offensive line rankings last week, and I was looking for where the Texans were because I don't keep up with the Texans. So I was looking at where the Titans were, and the Texans were like 2 spots ahead of the Titans, and the Titans were like 31. which tells you how bad the offensive line for the Texans has been. But Simmons had a monster game. Simmons is responsible for why the defense bowed up as much as they did. Considering the fact that special teams gave the Texans 10 points, Levis gave the Texans 7 points, and still the defense gave them a shot to win the game in the end. And Simmons, big play after big play down the stretch, he played like a superstar, and he made the big play at the end of the game. And on top of it, I was listening to Simmons talk in the locker room after the game. When you play like that, you can say whatever you want. This is what we've been asking for. Pressure the quarterback. Stop running plays in the backfield. And Simmons did it all game. Yes, I know Tavondre Sweat got his first sack. Way to go. He finally got one. Kenneth Murray had an interception. Jarvis Brownlee. I got to tell you, Brownlee, and I'm kind of torn on Brownlee a little bit, but Brownlee gets the easiest interception in the world. And Titans Twitter is treating it like he's Champ Bailey. I mean, I don't even know what C.J. Stroud was thinking when he threw that ball. But hey, had a nice game. Special teams. Nick Folk gets the game ball. And again, I don't think there's any discussion on that. Willie Donick wants an hour-long apology. He texted me yesterday saying he wants an hour-long apology for me calling Nick Folk mini leg last year.
He's right.
And an hour.
Yeah.
An hour.
Yes.
How do we do that for an hour?
I don't know. We'll find a way.
Willie Donick wants an hour-long apology because I banged on that trade last year. And if you do remember, I did call him on Friday, Ran Carthon's second best acquisition. I also, during training camp, said, hey, all this Braden Narvison stuff, like, let's chill. Nick Folk's the kicker. But they won yesterday because of Nick Folk. Like, they won because Nick Folk is a reliable kicker, especially indoors when there's not any wind. He is much better indoors than he is outdoors for whatever reason. He's much better than big boy Randy Bullock, although he's starting to put on some LBs. Maybe he might be Randy Bullock size here in the near future, but he's a good kicker. And it was a good acquisition by the Titans, and Nick Folk gets a game ball. He gets a game ball. So there you go. NWI, Simmons, and Nick Folk. Ian, do you have a problem with any of those?
Offense could be a little bit debatable.
Who would you give it to?
I would consider Pollard.
Fumbled the ball in plus territory.
Okay. I would consider Levis.
Threw a pick six.
And I would consider Ridley. Those are all considerations.
Really had a nice little game. Ridley's turning into form.
Chig had a nice play. That's not game ball worthy, but I thought those three you could probably put in the mix.
I'm staying with NWI. NWI gets a game ball. So with that, to your phones, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And the single most shocking thing that happened yesterday, I don't know if you guys were as shocked by me. I wasn't even looking at the TV when it happened because I couldn't believe it. We'll hit on that next and your phones. This week's Nationals Best Deal is Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic chicken joint. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last. TheGameNational.com/deals. Gift card is only good for the Tanger outlets in Antioch and inside Assembly Food Hall in downtown Nashville.
Fairbairn is on for the field goal attempt to tie this game up. This will be a 28-yarder with 1:56 to play in regulation here in Houston. Good snap, good hold. The kick is no good. Oh, my. Fairbairn can't believe it with 1:53 to play here in the fourth quarter. We just talked about him being in the record books on 50-yarders, and he missed a 28-yarder.
I can't believe it either, because that's a perfect snap and hold, and he just hooks it.
Oh, man.
Like you're not even trying, you're just trying to hit it right down the middle. There's no win, and his head comes up, his hips come across, and such a critical miss at such a critical time to tie the game with 1:53 left.
I was shocked yesterday when Kayemi Fairbairn, who I think is the most underrated kicker in the National Football League, when Kayemi Fairbairn missed that kick, and they flashed to Brian Callahan on the sidelines, and he had his arms in the air like, yes! Like I did something. Yes. I was like, I can't believe Fairbairn missed a 28-yard kick. How many times has Kayemi Fairbairn over the years, how many times has Kayemi Fairbairn gone up there against the Titans from 57 and knocked the crap out of the ball right down the middle? Even when the Texans have been bad, they have lost games to the Texans because of Kayemi Fairbairn. My girlfriend is Canadian. She's learning football as we go. She had A.J. Brown on her fantasy team yesterday. When the Eagles were on defense, she was wondering where A.J. was. I had to say, well, he's on defense, right? Or they're on defense right now. But she put together her fantasy football team, didn't know who to take for kicker, and I said, take Kayemi Fairbairn because this guy is absolute money. He is the man. Earlier in the game, Fairbairn set a record for 50-plus yard kicks made. So when he goes out from 28, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this thing's going to overtime. And then as soon as he missed, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. The Texans, I mean, we're under the 2-minute warning. You get a first down, this ball game is over. Which, of course, they did not do. I thought the Titans won the game when on the first down play when they got 7 yards running to the left side, and then they got cute trying to run it to PT. But again, the most shocking thing, and there were a lot of crazy things that happened in the game yesterday, but the single most shocking was the Kayemi Fairbairn miss from 28 yards. And by the way, it didn't hurt the Titans in the end, but Fairbairn fell right to the ground right after he missed the kick because he knew he blew it. Like he knew he cost him the game. And then he gets up and he takes his helmet off on the field. That is a 15-yard penalty.
He slammed that sucker.
And the ref was looking right at him. And they didn't throw a flag. And I'm like, if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm getting out there and saying, where is my 15-yarder? Because field position at that point in time would have mattered. But again, that was the single most shocking thing that happened yesterday. But you know what? As Jared from Spring Hill texts into the text line, Rand is happy to say the ball bounced their way. Can't argue it didn't bounce your way yesterday. Gave up an 80-yard kick return. Fumbled in plus territory. Threw a pick six. Gave up 8 sacks. And the most underrated kicker in the NFL misses a gimme. I don't even think an extra point is 28 yards. And he missed it. 615-737-1025 and your phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, I hope Amy doesn't let her guard down. Levis still stinks. Boy, I tell you, I listened to Robbie and Joe this morning. You would think Will Levis has a new lease on life. You would think it was right back to where we were at the beginning of the season. Like, man, if Levis keeps doing this, Levis is this, Levis is that, Levis is so on and so forth. That said, I mean, I'm going to say this about Will Levis. I appreciate the fact that he didn't let the pick six ruin the game. Threw the ball down the field. Threw a big one to Ridley, although it was a little underthrown. Threw a big touchdown to NWI. And I think Brian Callahan did a fabulous job of setting Levis up for success, like the Chigakonkwo touchdown. But I don't know if Amy is all of a sudden going to do a 180, and if Amy is going to, say, oh, that's my guy now, because they did beat the Texans in Houston. And if you want Amy's support, the way to get it is to beat the Texans in Houston. I still got to see a lot more on Levis. Like, again, Levis threw a pick 6 yesterday. And so at some point, he's won 4 games off the top of my head as an NFL starter. He won this game. He won the Atlanta game. He won the Carolina game last year. And he won the Miami game. In 2 of his 4 wins, Will Levis has thrown a pick 6. That is not sustainable. Like, at some point, you got to win the game without throwing pick 6s or playing the Carolina Panthers. So I'm not ready to do a 180 on Levis. We'll get to Levis at length here today. But I also will say that there's improvement. These people on Twitter yesterday were like, you must hate this. I was like, you guys do know I root for the Titans, right? Indy Ben texts into the text line and says, my takeaway is I thought the Texans overall played a really sloppy game, missed tackles on defense and had coverage all day, and struggles on the offensive line, which clearly had been affecting C.J. Stroud. Indy Ben, my question to you is, why were you not watching the Lions kick that ass yesterday against the Colts? That would be my number one question for old Indy Ben. But let me say this, to Indy Ben's point, I think the Texans are frauds. Like, I think the Texans are this year's Jacksonville team last year. They got hot at the end of last year. They won a playoff game. Everybody was fawning over the quarterback. They had spent a boatload of money in free agency. They doubled down. And this year, they're not good. Like, I know they got 7 wins and they'll win the division and all that. That is not a good football team. Talking about the Texans. And I'm not here to do the whole, the Titans didn't win the game. The Texans lost the game. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to discredit the Titans. But I am, again, trying to be honest here, because I think honesty is probably the best quality. At least I've learned it is in my life right now. But the one thing that I would say and feel fairly confident in saying is Houston really disappointed me yesterday. Again, not that I was like, I'm a Texan fan, but they're just not good. And I do think, to Indy Ben's point, I think the Texans' offensive line is so bad that I feel as if it's affecting C.J. Stroud. The same way we talk about, I don't know if Levis could be any good with this offensive line. I think that is affecting C.J. Stroud with his terrible offensive line. One texter says, did you see the Commanders special teams yesterday? No, I did not, though I did see the highlight of Cavante Turpin picking the ball up at the 1-yard line, running it in for a touchdown, which I think is a little crazy. Andrew says, I think Levis and the team would have looked a lot better if Callahan didn't insist on his high percentage nonsense for the first 8 weeks. Levis is best taking shots, and there for 4 weeks, it's like Ridley wasn't even on the team. Now he's letting it rip. Am I wrong, or has 90% of his interceptions been on routes under 10 yards? Yeah, I mean, I can't do the math for you on the interceptions. I can say this. I do appreciate them throwing the ball down the field. That said, it felt like in the second half, granted, they gave up 7 sacks in the first half, and they gave up 8 for the game, so they made an adjustment which only gave up 1 sack in the second half. But I didn't feel like in the second half they were taking shots down the field. I'm like, throw the ball down the field. Because they had success with Ridley and NWI throwing the ball down the field in the first half. Now, again, I thought it was great coaching on Callahan's part, and he talked about it after the game yesterday on the Chig touchdown, where they kind of moved, Houston over. They were doubling Ridley, and so they moved everything to Ridley's side, and then they hit Chig on the backside, and Houston all went with Ridley into the other side of the field, and that's how Chig runs down all the way for a touchdown. So that, I'm going to say, hey, that's good coaching. But I was in the second half a little disappointed they weren't throwing the ball down the field. But again, they had 7 sacks in the first half, and that's probably why. One texter says, coming from the guy who said the Texans figured out everything on the offensive line, went position by position earlier this season and mentioned how outstanding they were to get in the right positions, unlike the Titans. You know, the Texans' offensive line. Last year, they had George Fant. And with George Fant playing right tackle, and George Fant is nothing to write home about, he's fine. I don't even know how he's doing in Seattle. I don't keep up with him. But he is a replacement level player. With George Fant at right tackle, they played Titus Howard at left guard. They paid Titus Howard $1 gazillion. So now they've moved him to right tackle because they want to justify paying him $1 gazillion. Something is not right because that Texan offensive line is terrible. And last year, they gave that young quarterback time. So I couldn't tell you what it is. But the Texan offensive line this year is nothing like the Texan offensive line that I thought was very good in protecting the young quarterback last year. And not only that, they said on the CBS broadcast, Laramie Tunsil has the most penalties in the NFL. One texter says, since you never admit you're wrong, you swore this offseason the Texans were legit. Swearing that they are legit and saying, hey, I think they're legit are two totally different things. But let me say this. I never bought the 2023 Jacksonville Jaguars. I remember when they beat the Chargers, and I remember how that felt watching that game. And then everybody spent the entire offseason fawning over Trevor Lawrence and telling us Lawrence was so good and the Jags were so good. And I didn't buy it for a second. Houston did the exact same thing last year, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I really thought Houston was legit. And I thought Stroud was legit. Not that I'm saying Stroud's not legit, but I thought they were legit. They beat Buffalo earlier in the season, and they are not impressive. They're just a team that looks like it's got a lot of shiny parts to it. But when you pop open the hood, the engine of the car, there's something screwed up in there. And so the Texans, something about them, again, this ain't Houston radio, but something about them is not right. And I'll admit that freely. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. But Jared, what about the draft status? I do have some feelings on that. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
Right, and in terms of investment, buy-in, just trying to build what you want to build here, how important step do you think this was, and how important do you think the rest of the season will be for that?
Critically important. There's, again, one of the things I keep trying to have is some validation for what we do and how we do it. And that ultimately in the NFL comes in the form of wins. And we finally get a chance against a really good team on the road in the division to show what we're made of. And this is the team that I think we're capable of being. It's the team that I've believed in all year long, the way that they go about their business and the foundation and the culture of what we want our team to look like is there. We've just had to make the plays to win the game. And it was really great to see that. So this is a critical stretch for all of us, just in terms of making sure that what we want our team to be and what the future of our team looks like, which for us is just week to week right now. But it validates a lot of the things that we've done so far.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan yesterday after the game. According to Tankathon.com, the Titans now hold the 6th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. They sit behind Jacksonville, who they will see on Sunday, the Giants, Vegas, New England, Carolina, and you. You're ahead of the Jets, and the Cleveland Browns, where Jameis Winston. Ian, did you see Jameis on Thursday night?
Oh, man, was that fun or what?
Ordered up a dub, baby. I ordered up a dub on Amazon, and it'll be at my house tonight.
He was like, oh, the snow, and I'm just here. It was so good.
So, I mean, look, is it bad for the draft status that the Titans lost? Yeah. I mean, one. I say lost because it feels like, as far as the draft is concerned, it does feel like they lost. But I can accept yesterday. I can accept winning yesterday because it was important to the owner. To the coach's point, it does validate the process a little bit when you go into the division leader and you stick a foot up their ass, which you did. I think it was a good day for the quarterback in spite of the pick six. Like all those things I think, matter. But I will tell you what I think the most important, when I say the most important part, the reason that I feel the most comfortable with winning yesterday and it hurting the draft stock and I'm still okay with it, Houston was getting too cocky. Houston was getting too cocky, too arrogant, and you were getting beaten by them too much. You got beat by them at the end of 2022. You got beat by them last year. Remember Malik Willis in that 1 degree game, at Nissan Stadium? You got beat by them last year at home with the JV Texans in the Oiler throwback uniform. You got absolutely housed by the Texans in Houston at the end of the year. And they were getting too arrogant. They were getting too cocky, too arrogant. And at some point, balance, as Mace Windu said, balance has got to be returned to the force. So I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is beating a sorry Patriots team by 3 points in overtime at home when you do almost nothing right, and then that hurts your draft status. I think about it like a meal, right? I've always heard of empty calories. French fries, though French fries are delicious. French fries are empty calories. Soda, empty calories. A can of soda is like 140 calories, and it is all sugar. It's bad for your teeth. It doesn't do anything for you. It's not protein. It's not fiber. It's not empty calories. The Patriot win those were empty calories. The Dolphins win. Empty calories. Congratulations, you beat a JV Dolphin team. This game had some juice. Had some juice to it. That being said, I'm not saying I'm rooting for Jacksonville on Sunday because I haven't made up my mind yet. I guess they're playing Washington this Sunday. So it's Jacksonville 2 Sundays from now. But I probably will be rooting for Jacksonville because you do need to get into that, number 2, number 3 land of the draft. I don't want to pick number 6. Matt says, I didn't realize it's hard to fire anyone after a win, but the special teams performance was unbelievably bad as usual. I don't understand how they keep this special teams coach. Well, it's only because they won that he kept his job. I'm dead serious. If they had lost that game yesterday, let's say Fairbairn makes the field goal And again, this is what I love about the NFL. I love about the NFL. I keep thinking about the Giants game at the beginning of 2022 when Tannehill hit Kyle Phillips in the 2-minute drill and it set up the field goal and Randy Bullock missed from 47. And we spent a week analyzing every little disastrous decision that the Titans made and each Todd Downing play call and again, I'm like, if Big Boy just makes the kick, we don't have any of that. But that's how football is. If Fairbairn makes that 28-yard field goal, which, again, Fairbairn makes that kick 100 times out of 100. Somehow yesterday was 101. And I also, by the way, I keep getting off on these little tangents here, but could we not have saved that kick for a more meaningful moment? Like Evan McPherson for the Bengals in the playoffs. Like, can we take that Fairbairn miss and apply it to when we really need it? That would be nice. Because I think in my entire lifetime of watching Titan football, and I don't know why one doesn't just pop into my head. Ian, I'm not sure the other team has ever missed a game-winning kick against the Titans. That wasn't from 55 plus.
You mean straight up missed? Not blocked?
Right. So that one against the Chiefs, that doesn't count, where they snapped the ball funny and then the punter threw the ball like into the 8th row. Like, yeah, that doesn't count.
That one, and then Kalu blocked one, right? 1 year.
Yeah, that was the Chiefs, I think.
That was.
But I'm talking about, like, here comes Mike Vanderjagt, 47 for the win.
And he just shanks
and
it.
It's
yeah.
no good. Like how many times you did with Randy Bullock and Al Del Greco and, everybody not named Rob Baronis and Ryan Suckup, all those.
Yeah,
I'm trying
I
to
don't
think.
know. Nothing stands out right now. I'm trying to think. Surely there's got to be
Sammy Hill
one.
blocked a kick against the Jags in 2014.
That's a long time ago.
Again, could we have saved that for a more meaningful kick? But again, if Fairbairn doesn't miss that kick, then all of a sudden, like, it's a totally different. Cole Anderson probably does lose his job today. Like, I'm serious. Because you can't have, I tweeted this out yesterday. I always go over to my parents' house, watch Titans games with my dad. And my parents were eating lunch in the kitchen, and I was in their living room, and they fumbled a punt. And the living room TV is on DirecTV. The TV in the kitchen, in the dining room, that at their house, and I'm sure my dad would just love the fact that I'm sharing this info with everybody, that is YouTube TV streaming because they don't have a box, so I put my YouTube TV in there. So that's like 20 seconds behind what I'm seeing on DirecTV. So I see the Jaquan Jackson fumble, and I hear my dad in the next room say to my mom about 45 seconds later, they need to fire the special teams coach. And I tweeted it out. I'm like, even my dad, and my dad is not a fire people guy. Even my dad is like, get rid of them. And if they had lost, I think they would have. Like, I do wonder if you're Brian Callahan, if you call Colt Anderson into the office today and you say, hey, Colt, just so you know, like, you can thank Kayemi Fairbairn for you having a job today. One texter says, Steelers playoffs, Jared. No, you missed that kick. You missed the kick, and Nedney fell down, and then you got another crack at it. That's not the same as, again, the Steelers kicking to win the game, and the guy just misses it from 52. That never happens to the Titans. Never happens. And it happened yesterday. 615-737-1025. Let's get to the quarterback. 615-737-1025. So is Will Levis keeping his job? We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Titans Monday, Titans winners at the Texans yesterday in what I thought was incredible and improbable fashion. And I would argue this was probably the best Titans win, maybe over the last 2 years, in all seriousness. So, with that, is Will Levis keeping his job? Because the last 3 weeks, Will Levis has actually looked like a legitimate quarterback. By the way, Ian, I would like to take credit, if I'm allowed to.
Probably not.
For the fact that after the Charger game, remember Levis got sacked 8 times and everybody said, oh, he's holding on to the ball too long. He sucks. He's not. I was like, guys, this Charger game was the best game he's played all year. Like, I was proud of him in the Charger game. And everybody was talking about bad he sucks and this and that. And I'm like, he didn't turn the ball over. He had a quarterback rating of 127. He this, he that. And now all of a sudden, Ian, everybody said over the last 3 games, including the Charger game, they didn't give him credit for the Charger game. When the Charger game happened, I gave him credit for the Charger game.
Sure.
Remember PK getting all mad about how I said Brian Callahan should pump those tires? Yeah. But again, back to the original question. Is he keeping his job at quarterback? Jury's still out. It's too early to tell. But I kind of hope he doesn't. And I know. Jared, he just won the game and he's improving. And if he's our guy and he proves he's the guy by the end of the year, then you don't have to go looking for Shedeur Sanders. Then you don't have to go try to reclamate Daniel Jones or bring in Justin Fields. So, I mean, why are you hoping Levis is not the guy, Jared? The reason I say this is not because he can't get better and prove to us by the end of the year that he deserves to be the guy or not. It's because I'm not really convinced Levis was great yesterday. Like, I mean, I think for a second we have to be honest. Was he good yesterday? He threw a pick 6. A terrible pick 6. Good quarterbacks throw pick 6s occasionally. Will Levis throws pick 6s regularly. And I know technically he gets credited with a game-winning drive and a fourth quarter comeback, but he didn't really lead a big-time drive to win the game. It's not like if Fairbairn hits the 28-yarder and the Texans kick off to the Titans and Levis hits Chig for 18 and then he, hands off to Pollard who gains 6, call timeout. Then they throw one over the middle to Ridley for 20. And then he sets one up to NWI, and now here comes Folk, and he makes the game winner. It wasn't that kind of fourth quarter comeback game-winning drive. He took 8 sacks yesterday, and a lot of them, I believe, were on him. And some of those I heard Callahan say today, when he was running back up, were moments where Callahan said, do not take a sack and do not lose yardage. So he's in the pocket, feels it collapsing, and then he runs back up. There was one where he missed a wide open Calvin Ridley, and I actually thought that J.C. Latham was the problem because I think he felt like Latham being pushed back by either Anderson or Hunter, and like he didn't want to try to bring the ball around in fear that they'd sack it. So they're not all on him, but I did think of the 8 sacks. I did think 4 or 5 of them probably were credited to Levis. And again, good quarterbacks don't throw pick 6s consistently. And he threw one yesterday. He threw a killer yesterday. He threw the kind of pick 6 that's like, do not throw that. But he is better than he was at the beginning of the year. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. He is absolutely a better quarterback than when he got hurt in the Miami game and the, I think, just tragic performance against Indianapolis. He is better than. So I'm a little conflicted. And I will say this. Again, while he's gotten better, I still don't know if that better is good enough. That's the problem that I have. And the one thing I don't subscribe to, while I do think that winning and losing is a quarterback stat over time, I don't think that just because he won the game, all of a sudden, all of the issues that they may have no longer exist. I don't think that just because they won the game, for instance, that Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
I don't think that just because they won the game, all of a sudden PT is a starting right tackle in the NFL. I don't think because they won the game, Chig had a fabulous touchdown yesterday. But I don't all of a sudden think that Chig Okonkwo is the man. And yet there are probably some people that think that. You know what's amazing about Chig? And I tweeted this out yesterday. Chig goes about 85 snaps in between good, positive, meaningful plays. You know, he makes that touchdown grab against the Chicago Bears in week 1. An incredible touchdown grab. And then we don't see or hear for Chig for another 9 weeks. Then all of a sudden, Chig catches a ball, runs up the field with it for 70 yards and a touchdown. And it's like, hey, Chig! And the CBS broadcasters are like, why don't they throw the ball to Chig more often? It's like, because he doesn't do that very often. Catching it is hard enough for him. So when it comes to Chig, again, it's like, am I really a believer that Chig is the man because they won the game yesterday? NWI is a different story. NWI has been doing this for 2 months. Every game he catches a touchdown pass. At some point you have to say, that's what he is. Again, I don't think he's a touchdown a game guy, but I do think we can say NWI is a starting receiver right now. At least he's playing like it. So just because they won the game yesterday doesn't make me think that all the things Levis did, whether it was take 8 sacks, 5 or so of which were probably on him, throw a pick 6, which is inexcusable. Adam Vingan texted me earlier today when I said we couldn't give Tony Pollard a game ball because he fumbled in plus territory, and Adam said actually the fumble was credited to Levis. So that's 2 turnovers.
Yeah, that was a fumbled exchange there.
Again, those are the things that get you beat. They didn't get you beat yesterday for whatever reason. And I'm still not sure I totally understand. I mean, again, I have never seen an 80-yard kickoff return, a fumble in plus territory, a pick 6, 8 sacks, and you still win. But those are the kind of plays that get you beat, and he committed them yesterday. So because of that, I have a hard time just saying just because they won the game yesterday and because he's throwing the ball down the field, which he wasn't doing earlier in the year. The one thing I'll say about Levis is he is a tough SOB, man. He gets up off the deck and it does not affect him. And I will give him credit. Joe Burrow does that, and not a lot of other quarterbacks can do that. And I'll give him some credit because he didn't care about taking licks yesterday. But we're talking about whether or not the guy deserves to be the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. And those are 2 different things. So while the arrow is trending up, I'd argue after the Miami game and the Indy game where he threw 95 yards for the game, there was nowhere to go but up. But I still don't think we're kind of in the ballpark of talking about starting next year. Now, Tim Hasselbeck was on the midday show last week, and he said, yeah, I mean, again, he's gotten better, but when I say, you know, I think Tim said he's not entering camp next year as the true starter. And I wonder tomorrow when Tim goes on the midday show if he'll say the same thing. But I'm not ready to commit to Levis for the starting job next year. I'm not even really ready to entertain it for next year because I'm still not convinced he played a very good game, even though they won. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. And again, talk about getting too caught up in Levis's performance. I saw something today that I was like, wait a minute. What? Like, Did we watch the same game? We'll get to that next. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They were at my home last week. And Hiller's Cash for the Holidays promotion is back. And they're giving away cash for the holidays with select purchases, like a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems or a new whole home generator. Get a $250 Visa gift card when you buy a new tankless water heater. And these deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today by visiting happyhiller.com. Take advantage of Hiller's $99 drain cleaning special this month, too. There's no better time to take care of your home before the holiday guests arrive, and I'm sure they're coming soon. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
And again, Petrie's out with that shoulder injury sustained in the first half. Levis has it intercepted. Jimmy Ward. He could go the whole way. He's got Levis to beat. Into the end zone. Touchdown, Texans. The game has flipped.
What a two-play sequence for Jimmy Ward here. He's going to be inside. We talked about it a lot this second half, taking over for Petrie in that nickel position. And he's able to just confuse. Watch right here. Watch him come off the ball. And Levis never sees him. And Jimmy Ward just steps in the throwing lane. He's got his eyes on Levis the entire time. And that's an easy of a pick six as he's ever had.
And that's exactly what Levis has avoided the last couple weeks. The disastrous turnover. He threw it right to him. You said he didn't see him, Jay. I don't know how he didn't see him.
Ian, what'd you think when he threw a pick six?
I mean, I wish I could say it was super surprising, or whatever. But hey, just kind of comes with the territory with Levis, I guess.
I saw the pick six and I thought, oh, there they go.
Here we go.
Oh, there they go. I mean, he was having a good game. And it was a close game, and they were winning, and everything was, there to go, there to go. So I will give him credit because that game did not tank them. Whereas some of the games in the past, that has tanked them, like the Chicago game. But I saw a poll today. Was yesterday Will Levis's best performance as a Titan? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. He took 8 sacks, 5 of which were probably on him. And he threw a pick six. Best performance? He was a perfect passer against the Atlanta Falcons last year. He, Mariota, and Fran Tarkenton are the only quarterbacks to throw 4 touchdowns and no picks in their debuts. This game yesterday was not better than the Atlanta game. Was it encouraging yesterday? Sure. But best performance? Crazy. Again, sometimes unless it's like Ryan Tannehill in 2019 playoffs, and even then, sometimes I just think people don't care how the quarterback plays as long as they win. 4 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, but the quarterback sets the team in range to score a game-winning field goal and win 17-14 in spite of the 14 points that were scored off of 2 pick sixes. Great job, quarterback! Levis had his good moments yesterday, but he also had his numerous bad moments yesterday during the game. And those are the things that if he's going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, not if he's going to be the 34th best quarterback or a quarterback on a bad team. But if Levis is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, those are things that can't happen. Well, Jared, Tom Brady threw pick sixes. Yeah, like 1 a year. Again, you're trying to tell me this was his best? Come on now. He threw for 278 yards in the NFL. At some point, in order to say like, hey, this guy, he's the man, trust me on this, he's probably going to need to crack 300 yards. But everybody else is like, he won, so who cares? They won the game, Jared. Who cares? Well, again, we're trying to evaluate whether or not he should be the guy. I'm going to tell you, again, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here because it is the holidays now. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but I am going to keep it real. We're trying to evaluate, again, should he be a starting quarterback next season? Well, I can't tell you how many, if he's going to throw a pick six every game, even if they win, they're not going to win a lot of games the rest of the year. So we're going to have to be able to evaluate them when they don't win. Like the Charger game, where I thought he played well and everybody said they sucked. What was the difference? They lost. That was the difference. Took 8 sacks in both games. Didn't throw an interception in the Charger game. He actually had a higher quarterback rating, I believe 127 to 124 yesterday in the Charger game. And I'm the one who got criticized for saying he played well in the Charger game. So no, Like, it was not his best performance. And those little things, again, not the end of the world because you won yesterday. And the throw to NWI, beautiful. Some of those throws to Ridley, it looks like they're getting there. Gets himself up off the deck. I appreciate that. But we can't just forget about the bad things and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter because they won. That would be like saying if Tannehill threw 3 interceptions, but somehow Joe Burrow got intercepted on that drive that led to the McPherson field goal, and the Randy Bullock makes a field goal, and I say, Tannehill played great. Whoa now. But hey, they won. Let's go to Brig. Is it Brig? Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Brig in the Burrow is up next. Go ahead, Brig.
Hey, Jared. Appreciate you taking my call, buddy. Hey, I just want to make a couple comments, and I'll listen to y'all off air. You know, we talking about looking for another quarterback possibly in the draft, and I'm all for trying to find another quarterback and have one in the tank just in case we need to fall back on. But I've been watching this team ever since the Liberty Bowl days, and I've slowly, like a lot of others, I used to go on Titans coming on at 12 o'clock. I got to be there quick. Got to be home. I'm slowly not at that enthusiasm anymore because of what I've seen in this team. And, you know, when you look at I know we always look at that, we got to find that 20% quarterback in the draft. And I know that's hard, those Peyton Mannings and Andrew Lucks and Brady's. But when you think about it, we haven't had almost a 20% quarterback since Steve McNair.
What is a 20% quarterback?
Yeah, that 20%
what is
quarterback.
That? What are you talking about?
You know, finding that in the draft, usually find an elite quarterback like the Brady said, that's only like 20%, less than 20% of those type of quarterbacks are usually picked in the draft. So a
franchise quarterback.
Yes. And I think about maybe, you know, Steve McNair was in that category, but ever since 20 years ago, Steve McNair, we've not even had a 30 or 40% quarterback, from Rusty Smith to Matt Hasselbeck to Brian Fitzgerald to Zach Mittenberger, Jay Locker. We cannot find that at least 40% quarterback, and that's what I'm really frustrated on.
I will tell you that Ryan Tannehill, thank you for the call break. Ryan Tannehill was a 40% quarterback. You know, again, there's elite quarterback, and Steve McNair. McNair was never, and as a Titan fan, we didn't care. But McNair never had the numbers that Favre, Manning, Brady, Gannon, you know, those guys. He never had those kind of stats, but he did win an MVP. You know, people will tell you McNair was probably closer to Trent Green than he was to Kurt Warner. But McNair did go to the Pro Bowl a couple of times, and McNair did win an MVP. So I'll give you that. McNair was a franchise quarterback. You won playoff games with him. He was an MVP. He finished in the top 3 in 2002. Like, McNair was legit. But, you know, Tannehill was a step below that. Went to the Pro Bowl in 2019, was the quarterback of the number 2 rated offense in the NFL in 2020. Tannehill was a step below that. So let's not just totally discredit everything Tannehill did here. But I hear what you're saying about finding, you know, the guy. That's what this is all about for everybody. It's about, can you find the guy? That's the job. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? And again, you know, you talk about, well, I'm not excited to watch Titans until we get that kind of guy. Well, the rest of this year, you probably won't have it unless Levis becomes it. But I'm not as optimistic as everybody else that Levis will become it, so let's just keep that one kind of in the back pocket. More of your phone, 615-737-1025. We continue on a Titans Monday, a victory Monday, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Last 3 drives, 13 plays, -1 total yards for the Titans, and the pick 6. Okonkwo, he's got some inside Texans territory, inside the 35-30, 25-20. He may go, stiff arm, end zone. Touchdown, Titans. Chig Okonkwo. Not only did he get into the open field, but he showed explosiveness on a 70-yard touchdown reception.
Been waiting for this all game. You're going to see right here. All he's going to do is just drag right across and get a matchup with the linebackers. Nobody stays with him. He's wide open, and then he has the ability, the game-breaking speed, to be able to bust it open. It's the play I've been waiting on for this offense to run all game.
I mean, it's the play I've been waiting for him to run. The one to Chig. I do have to give Brian Callahan credit on that. That was a great play call. You know, and that's the thing. Levis threw for 270 yards, 70 on that to Chig. Just a little pitch and catch. Chig took it to the house. 1 catch for Chig, by the way. Don't look for him to make another important catch the rest of the year. He's made 2. The Chicago Bears game and this one, he is maxed out for the year. He might have 1 more big catch left in him. Let's go to the phones as promised. Dave in Mount Juliet has been waiting patiently here on a Titans Monday. Dave, go ahead.
Hey, Jared. How are you today?
Good.
Good. Hey, so I just wanted to say one thing. I'm not a Will Levis fan. In fact, I don't like Will Levis. I didn't like him coming out of Kentucky. I thought he was an average at best college quarterback, and so I didn't like that we drafted him. That being said, I am encouraged in what I'm seeing because, yes, Will Levis had an incredible day yesterday, and he did it without an offensive line, probably the worst offensive line in the league, does not have a quality tight end, and, a lot of a first-time play caller. So I think we have to be encouraged. And do I need to remind you what Malik Willis did? I mean, just saying, what if Will Levis had a good team around him? That's all I had to say.
No, I appreciate your call. I don't completely disagree with that. And I think that, I don't know what happened to the Texans offensive line. Again, I think that it is moving Tyus Howard back to right tackle from left guard with Tunsil. And again, I couldn't tell you because the Texans offensive line, Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat, and yeah, I'm going to give Sweat his credit. They ate that Texans offensive line for breakfast. But the Texans, Pro Football Focus said the Texans offensive line was 1 or 2 teams above the Titans going into this game. And that wasn't the Texans offensive line I remember from last year. But the point I guess I'm making is last year, C.J. Stroud had Dalton Schultz, had Devin Singletary, had Robert Woods, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. Now, again, he's got all those guys right now, and I don't know why it doesn't look the same. But he was, for some reason, it was better last year. And Stroud was better. The protection significantly better. And Stroud was better. And now the protection's terrible. Go read John McClain's tweets during the game. He was getting worked up about how bad Bobby Slowick's offense was. And I did think Bobby Slowick should be the coach of the Titans. So what do I know? But about how bad Bobby Slowick is and how bad the passing game was and how bad the Texans are. And again, I don't think Stroud got significantly worse, but something's not right. Maybe it was the film that they had on Bobby Slowick running that offense that they said, okay, now we know how to game plan against them. Levis on a good team, probably is a much better quarterback. So that is something at least to keep in mind. I'm not going to discredit. I've been saying that forever. Because again, PT played his best game of the year on Sunday. Played his best game of the year. He still sucks.
Good for PT.
Boy, I saw that one in live time when PT got out there on that 110-pound guy and just lit up Tiny Tim out there. I saw that. I was watching the game, saw it in live time. Said, good block, PT.
Sounded like Latham was having some little bit of issue with the speed rush from Hunter at times, but
yeah, well, Anderson was the one that was getting to Latham, but Latham couldn't pass protect yesterday. Also, it should be noted that I saw, according to Seth Walder at ESPN, the passrushwinrate.com stat, whatever. Apparently, Danielle Hunter was number 2 in the entire NFL yesterday. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I maybe got
the rain's coming. The rain's coming.
You think that's what it is? Who knows?
Yep.
Let's go to Brandon, who's up next here on the Texans. Brandon, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for taking my call. Perfect segue into this. I was texting my family that are in Houston during the game yesterday, and I'll just read you some of these text messages from them. First text message says, "Fire Bobby Slowick." Second one, "CJ Stroud looks broken. He's been bad all year. Should have waited for Caleb Williams and drafted an offensive lineman." How do you evaluate these guys? I just want to hear some of these thoughts. Sounds like you started talking about it already. Says that he throws the ball 5 yards too short of his receivers and doesn't trust them. I mean, they were going off yesterday. I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Yeah, so before the draft, and granted this isn't, because I think Stroud's pretty good, but before the draft, I had a doozy of a take. If you remember, I was not a CJ Stroud guy. I loved Anthony Richardson. And I didn't see how Anthony Richardson scored 6 points yesterday, but apparently he only scored 6 points yesterday. But I loved Anthony Richardson. Was okay with Bryce Young. Didn't have any serious problem with Young, but I wasn't infatuated with him. And I liked Levis. Wasn't a huge Stroud guy. And the thing I thought about CJ Stroud was I felt like CJ Stroud reminded me too much of Marcus Mariota. You know, Marcus Mariota at Oregon, everything in that offense was wide open. Mariota, it was easy. He was just more athletic, more gifted. Mariota was a first-round prospect, make no doubt about it. 6'3", 210 pounds, had good arm, decent enough arm, Heisman Trophy winner, great athlete. Mariota was a slam dunk first-round quarterback prospect. Now, that doesn't mean when I say he's a slam dunk prospect, doesn't mean that he was going to be a slam dunk quarterback. But again, as a prospect, there was no questioning his first-round credentials. It's like Drake May. I have no idea if Drake May will be any good or not, but Drake May absolutely is a first-round prospect. So I just kept seeing Mariota when it came to CJ Stroud, and I didn't know exactly why. And yesterday, watching the game, I thought both interceptions from Stroud were inexcusable. Then he runs out of the back of the end zone at the end of the game. Like, throw the ball. His regression from what I saw out of CJ Stroud last year, out of what I saw out of CJ Stroud yesterday, kind of reminded me of Mariota. Remember Mariota's second year? Forget the first year. That was a gong show. Mariota's second year, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, lit it up. Second year, I believe, was something like 13 and 15. And clearly, he had taken a step back. Now, they won a playoff game with Mariota at quarterback, but that was a playoff game in which he threw a touchdown pass to himself. Mariota wasn't the same guy. Mariota was never that same guy again. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case for Stroud, but I did see a Mariota-like performance yesterday. I mean, that interception on the ball where he and Mechie weren't on the same page, that is inexcusable for an NFL quarterback to throw. Well, Jared, it was a miscommunication. Right. You're the quarterback. You need to get on the right page with your receivers. That's your fault. You're the quarterback. They don't put an interception in John Mechie's category. They put it in yours. I thought that was inexcusable. And then the ball for Murray, no offense to Kenneth Murray, who's done a nice job. It was a good pickup by the Titans, but Kenneth Murray is by no means, again, I don't want to sound rude here, but by no means, in my opinion, is Kenneth Murray like any sort of great inside coverage backer. So that I struggled with a little bit from Stroud as well. One texter says, would you elaborate on the Levis might be too stupid to play in the NFL comment you made before halftime yesterday? Yes, I would, texter. So right before halftime, the Titans, and I believe it was off of one of the Stroud interceptions, I think the ball from Mechie, Levis had the ball 1st and 10 at the Houston 20. And this was with 37 seconds to go. And Will Levis got sacked on 3rd and 18 for a loss of 10 yards. Now, Nick Folk came out and drilled a 56-yarder, which I don't think anybody on the planet thought he was capable of making. Not even Willie Donick. He came out and drilled a 56-yard kick. But before he made it, I said to myself, I mean, you can't take that sack. You went from a 46-yard kick with a kicker who's going to make a 46-yard kick indoors to a 56-yard kicker or to a 56-yard kick with a 40-year-old kicker. You cannot take that sack. Well, Jared, he had 1 second to throw the ball, and they were trying to set up a screen. You dirt it. Those are things I shouldn't be telling Will Levis at this point. Now, again, it worked out because Folk hit the field goal, bailed him out. But Ian, if Folk had been 2 yards short on a 56-yard kick, would you have held that against Folk? Don't think you could. So, again, that's what I meant. And there are too many moments like that with Will Levis, even though he's getting better and not rolling the ball on the ground, where he does things that, I hate to say it, are too stupid that you cannot do consistently to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And that's exactly what I meant by that. 615-737-1025. I guess that sounded a little negative, but there is a negative angle to the Titans that I don't even know how you I don't even know what to say at this point. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
He was signed this past year by the Titans. He bought his mom the house here in Houston. And a fumble by the Titans. It'll be recovered by the Texans. Jackson came running up. The ball spun off his right hip. And the Texans jumped on top of it. At least that's the initial indication. There's a lot of fighting going on the pile.
You got to be kidding me with these Titans special teams.
I love Ross Tucker. You got to be kidding me with these Titans special teams. We got to hit the negative here for a second. Colt Anderson's got to go. Got to go. He's got to go. I mean, again, he won't be fired today, and he'll be the special teams coach next week because they won the game. Nobody gets fired after you win, I don't think. But if anybody was ever going to get fired after you win, it's him. Did you hear after the onside kick, which I got to say, NWI, it would have been nice if he had brought that in. Talk about, hey, Ran, that ball bounced your way out of bounds on the onside kick. But did you hear the CBS broadcasters when they said, boy, the person who's probably breathing the easiest is Colt Anderson, the Titans special teams coach? It's like, yeah, because he's only had enough go wrong this season and today. Outside of kicking, when it comes to the special teams, it's every single phase. And it feels like not only is it every single phase, it feels like it's every single phase in every game. I've never seen a team more maligned in special teams in my life. And I've watched Craig Aukerman coach them for the last 7 years. And it's not because, Brownlee can't play as much special teams anymore because other teams in the NFL have injuries too. And they don't allow 80-yard kickoffs right up the middle. It's because for whatever reason, there's either zero structure, zero accountability. Like, I don't know the first thing about coaching special teams. Now, I used to do the show with somebody who was a special teams guru. And I would say what I'm seeing from Colt Anderson and these special teams, at this point, he's coaching it and he's allowing it to happen. I have never seen such ineptitude in my life out of a special teams unit. And I watched the 2015 Titans with Ken Wisenhunt throw Dorial Green Beckham out there on the punt team, give up a game-winning touchdown to the Cleveland Browns, only to hear the head coach say, yeah, I didn't know if you could do it or not. We put him out there. And this is worse. And I heard Brian Callahan today. He was talking about, we had some mistakes early in the season and we fixed them, just like we've had mistakes on offense and we fixed them, just like we've had mistakes on defense and we fixed them. It ain't the same. And I cannot imagine what was going through Brian Callahan's mind when that opening kickoff went 80 yards to start the game. I mean, this is the Houston Texans. Again, I don't care about the Texans. I don't view the Texans any different than I view pretty much anybody else in the AFC. They're not Baltimore to me. But the owner was wearing a Houston Oiler belt buckle yesterday. As Jeffrey Simmons said, she had tears in her eyes after they won the game in the locker room. So I can't imagine that opening kickoff goes 80 yards up the field. They score on one play. And I can't imagine Callahan not hearing Miss Amy on the headset saying, why is he still coaching special teams? And I can promise you this. Colt Anderson's getting fired at the end of the year. They don't have anybody on the staff to take over, so they really don't want to do it. So what I think they're doing is they're biding their time until the end of the year. Then they'll fire Colt Anderson at the end of the year, and they'll hire an experienced special teams coach, and Callahan can just farm that out and not worry about it, which is what he should have done from the beginning. And he could have just kept the guy he already had in Tom Quinn, and he wouldn't have to worry about any of that, but that's his business. But again, congratulations on the win. It does not change reality that Colt Anderson has got to go. Got to go. One texter says, one good thing about the Titans win was Callahan didn't dress up or acted like a snake oil salesman, unlike the last coach. Vrabel never acted like a snake oil salesman. I think Vrabel was a straight shooter. But Vrabel would have gone up to the podium after the game yesterday, and he would have talked about how you guys never gave it. Well, I don't know if he would have done that. Vrabel was not a snake oil salesman. He was just an a-hole. There's a difference between the two. A snake oil salesman tells you things like, we checked every box on offense, meet our right tackle, PT. That's a little difference. Michael says, how do you feel about Jeffrey Simmons' play the last few weeks? Again, I don't know how Simmons played last week off the top of my head, but I'll say this about Simmons. Ian, what is the one prerequisite in my life? You've been listening to the show long enough, doing the show long enough. What is the prerequisite for me, for you, to be able to talk the talk?
We got to walk the walk.
You got to walk the walk. And yesterday, Jeffrey Simmons played. He was best player on the field. He played like a superstar. Now, granted, some of that is because the Texans' offensive line, for whatever reason, is complete ass cheeks. He dominated the Patriots. And I kept saying, guys, Pro Football Focus ranks your offensive line 31st. They rank the Patriots 32nd. So there is something to that. Again, I'm trying to think what happened last week against the Vikings. I can't, off the top of my head, think about anything special Simmons did or didn't do. But
they played well. They've been playing well against the run. I'll give them that. It's hard to run on the Titans still right now.
Nobody runs on the Tennessee Titans.
And so they might give up some big plays here and there. But overall, consistently, you could see even early in the game, they tried to run with Mixon. And Mixon had a great game the week before.
How about the big boy, Tavondre Sweat, getting a sack?
Yeah, finally. He got one.
I mean, I was
very. I think it's fair to expect the rookie to take a few weeks to get a feel for everything. And so,
well, I mean, CJ Stroud ran into him.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it's fair. See how he does here as the season progresses with the pass rush.
You think he'll get another sack this year?
Yeah. I think he's good for one more. You got, I don't know. I think they said maybe Trevor Lawrence will be back to practice. Might be tough this week against Jaden Daniels, but they probably, I wonder if they played against each other last year.
If I bet you $500 on another sack, if he gets another sack, I pay you $500. If he doesn't get another sack, no. If he gets another sack, yeah. If he doesn't get another sack, you pay me $500. Would you take that?
Probably not 500. No.
But I
Maybe
will
100.
say this: Sweat played well. And congratulations to Sweat on getting his first sack. I got no problem with that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. What we saw yesterday, I have never seen in my entire life. In fact, it's funny because some of the, going back in the Wayback Machine to find when the last time some of these things happened takes it back before I was even born. I saw TD had a tweet yesterday in which Will Levis has become the second quarterback since Randall Cunningham in 1986 to be sacked 7 times or more in one half multiple times. It's like, my goodness. And yet, it also kind of tells the story of the Titans season. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Titans Monday, a Victory Monday. How about them Titans, baby? Let me say this. You know me. I am fully embracing a tank job this year. I want the number one pick, which I think you may have lost yesterday, but let me just say this. I'm okay with chopping the Texans down a couple notches. I'm okay with that. The Dolphins win against a third-string quarterback. Ugh. The Patriots at home in overtime against that terrible team where they hit a miracle play at the end of regulation. Oh, no. This one actually showed some chutzpah. And again, the Texans were getting too cocky. And I don't think that's been getting talked about enough. But the Texans were getting too cocky. The city of Houston was getting too cocky. Their owner was getting their owner's hot wife. Ian, let's make sure we don't confuse those, the wording of the order of those words.
Yes, what you're saying about Cal.
Cal McNair is not a good-looking man. But his wife, freaking babe, Hannah McNair. She talked that talk. And it's okay to get Houston to, chop down a couple pegs. I don't get too worked up about this. This guy, Sports Radio 610 in Houston, he calls them the fake Oilers. Like, he won't say Titans. He's like, the fake Oilers. And I'm like, bro, I went to a game at Vanderbilt Stadium when the Tennessee Oilers played the San Diego Chargers and lost to Ryan Leaf. I sat through the 99-degree heat. I was miserable. You think Vandy Stadium's bad now? It was worse then. I watched the Oilers play. The Tennessee Oilers, red, white, and blue Tennessee Oilers, going to get all over you. They finished 8-8. Do the people in Baltimore call the Colts the fake Colts? So, again
the Browns might have something to say about the Ravens, yeah.
But the Ravens relinquished all rights to the Browns when they left Cleveland. That was a deal they made to get out of the lease.
That's fair. I guess that's a little bit different than the Titans and the Oilers, huh?
Right. If I own something, I got to sell it to you for you to own it. So, no, you don't get it. But let me just say this. I have never seen in my life a team give up 8 sacks, a fumble in plus territory, an 80-yard kickoff return to open the game, a muffed punt, and a pick 6, and still win. I've never seen that. Some people were like, well, Jared, remember, we sacked Joe Burrow 8 times in the playoff game, and yes. And Cincinnati won because they played great on special teams. They intercepted 3 passes. They played well. And again, you got 8 sacks, but they didn't fumble the ball in plus territory. They didn't give up an 80-yard kickoff return. So as I was watching the game with my dad after the Levis pick 6, I was expecting that the Titans were going to lose. Because, again, all these numerous mistakes, they're fumbling a punt, and I hear my dad say to my mom in the next room over, they got to fire the special teams coach. And I said to my dad, I go, you know what the 2 o'clock topic on tomorrow's show is going to be? The lead off on Titans Monday. Again, this was assuming a Titans loss. Which, by the way, I'm not sure I thought the Titans were going to win until Fairbairn missed that 28-yard kick. But I go, you know what the opening take is going to be tomorrow? The Titans have a horrendous offensive line. The special teams are an unmitigated disaster. And the quarterback might be stupid. But other than that, you might have a decent team. Again, not a great team, not the Ravens, but you might have an okay team. And isn't that kind of the story of the 2024 Titans? Again, you can't do this. This is what Eric Dickerson would say, losers say. But if you were to take out the just inexcusable special teams, whether it's the blocked punt against the Chicago Bears or the 80-yard kickoff return yesterday, or the kickoff return you gave up against the Chargers in the second half 3 weeks ago. Whatever you want to call it. There have been so many bad special teams this year that I can't even remember all of them. Didn't Stonehouse have some kind of debacle at some point this year? The Patriots game, maybe? I can't even remember.
He didn't have a great week this week.
Did you see that one where he kicked it like quick kicked it like a karate kick?
He's worried back there.
Like he got the ball in the end zone and he like kicked it like
Shanking one.
I mean, I don't think he's very good, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But if you take those out, how many more games do you win? I mean, again, I remember watching you up 17-0 against Chicago Bears, and I said, as long as you don't do anything stupid, let them back in the game, it's over. And then Jack Gibbons gets beat for a blocked punt. You lose. What about the Jets game? What about some of these other games? Then that takes me to my second thing. The horrendous offensive line, led by PT, who actually, I think Pro Football Focus gave him like a 29 grade yesterday, but I actually thought it might have been PT's best game. But the offensive line's been a mess all year, led by the right tackle, but they've had their own issues across the board. And yesterday they gave up 7 sacks in the first half. They gave up 8 sacks overall. If you replaced that offensive line with a good offensive line, or even an average offensive line, what would you have? And then the stupidity at the quarterback position. Taking a 10-yard sack before the end of the half, though it didn't bite him in the rear end. It did at Chicago. It did against the Jets. It did against the Colts. So I guess the point I'm making is, if you were just to fix those 3 things, how good would your football team be? And it's not as simple as, well, if the Titans go out next year and just worry about fixing special teams, drafting a right tackle, and signing a right guard, and reducing the foot fat of their left guard. He had a terrible block yesterday on the running play that Al-Shaair got charged with a 15-yard penalty for hitting the guy late. Skoronski, I mean, it was horrible. But again, you fix special teams, fix the offensive line, and the quarterback stops making dopey decisions, or you get a new quarterback who doesn't make them. Wouldn't you actually have a pretty decent team? Like, that was how I felt yesterday, which was, the Texans, I think the Texans are an example of what the old man used to always say, which was most of the teams in the NFL are, and remember, these were during 16-game seasons, most of the teams in the NFL are 8-8. And there's about 4 or 5 plays each year that takes an 8-win team and makes them a 10-win team. And there's 4 or 5 plays that take an 8-win team and make them a 6-win team. And I think the Texans are the definition of that. Last year, they played a last place schedule, and C.J. Stroud made a couple, those 3 or 4 plays that propelled them into being a decent team. But the Texans, to me, are a very average football team. In fact, I was disappointed. Not that I'm a Texan fan, but I was disappointed based on what my preseason expectations for the Texans were. I was disappointed with what I saw yesterday out of them. But again, my point is, outside of the screw-ups you had yesterday, special teams, quarterback, offensive line, you actually looked like a kind of decent team. I'd like to see an improvement at tight end, though. 1 catch for 70 yards, good enough for me. But I think, again, Ridley's fine. NWI's fine. Pollard's fine. Your defense could use an extra pass rusher, but it's fine. But the story of this season, the reason you suck, and you're not an 8-8 team like the Texans, is because your offensive line's terrible, your special teams will never be good, and the quarterback makes bad decisions like his pick 6 yesterday. And somehow, with 2 mistakes from their quarterback and a missed 28-yard kick, you were able to win the game and do that despite the issues that you have. But that's the story of this season. Bad offensive line, bad special teams, dumb quarterback play. That's the story of the Titans. Even the Lions game. What was the story of the Lions game? Bad special teams. The Bills game. PT. Bad offensive line play. So, again, that's at least you know what you got to fix now. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And the single most important thing that comes out of yesterday's game, and it's obvious, even if it is self-serving to nobody that we care about. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
Yeah, she got the game ball, and like I said, this was for her. Being able to come here. She even showed me her belt buckle. She had the Houston Oil belt buckle on, and just to see that, and like I said, when she gave a speech and said how much this means to her, that's the reason why you play this game. And when you have owners who care, who do everything for us, it's easy to go to war for her, and especially this game right here, because we know how much it means to her.
Jeffrey Simmons talking about, hey, we know how much this one means to Amy Adams Strunk. Jeffrey Simmons said she had tears in her eyes and her Oiler belt buckle. Houston means more to Amy Adams Strunk. It's crazy. It kind of reminds me of elections, which, again, I know we're glad that election season is over. But I always see all the time all of these Democratic and Republican strategists, which, by the way, I think is a pretty good job if you can get it. I mean, I'm sure it's stressful, but just pretend to know politics, and then after the election, none of it matters. You just move on, collect your check, and go on and start strategizing for the next one. But again, I see this all the time. People in elections think that they should tell you what you, the voter, need to believe. They will say, well, the number one issue for voters is the economy. But we think voters it doesn't matter what you think. The number one issue is the economy, then you need to figure out how to convince people that you either know what you're doing or the other guy doesn't. It's as simple as that. Which takes me back to the Titans. Amy Adams Strunk makes the decisions. And Amy Adams Strunk sometimes makes the decisions a little haphazardly. Would you agree? I would. She can be a little reckless when running this franchise. We know that. So while it doesn't matter to me anything special that they beat the Houston Texans, and it doesn't matter to me that Hannah McNair, the gorgeous wife of Texan owner Cal McNair, talked all that crap this past week. And while it probably doesn't mean anything to those guys in the locker room, what do they care about Hannah McNair saying Houston's ours now and they're just the Titans to us? What does Kenneth Murray care about that? But it matters to the one person whose opinion counts. And you got to give them credit for showing up and finding a way to win in that game. And so after the game was over, my biggest takeaway was Brian Callahan's not getting fired. Because Amy Adams Strunk, there may be dysfunction in that organization. I don't know. She may have made up her mind on the front office and say they're all coming back anyways. Maybe I have no idea what she thinks. And I'm not going to pretend to have an idea. But Brian Callahan gave her a gift yesterday. A win unexpectedly on the road at Houston against the Texans while they were high and mighty, the city that stuck a middle finger out to her father and her family right after the owner's hot wife talked all that trash. Brian Callahan, even after the game, and this might have been the best part of his coaching yesterday, and I thought he had a great game plan as far as throwing the ball down the field in the first half. I thought the play call to Chig in the second half was chef's kiss. But Brian Callahan said after the game, their message to the team was about how personal this game was for the owner.
I know you talked earlier in the week just about familiar with the rivalry before you got here. Did you see Amy after? How excited was her?
She was thrilled. She was thrilled mainly because we won the game. But yeah, it's okay to admit that these things sometimes mean more. And I know it does for her and it does for us. And we wanted to make sure that we put on a great performance down here and we had a chance to win the game, and we did. And I think that she's more than anything else just proud of our football team and in the way that they came down here and fought and played.
I mean, he said, hey, she was proud of us that we won the game. And he also said, hey, look, it's okay. We can say it. Sometimes it means a little more. That's what rivalries are in the NFL. The funny part about the rivalry is the people of Houston care about this. And the owner of the Titans care about this. But I'm not sure that the people in Nashville care. I don't care. I don't think the players care. But the fact that Brian Callahan told the players how important it was, and clearly it resonated when Jeffrey Simmons was like, yeah, coach told us how important this is to the owner. And so to see her Oiler belt buckle and to see the tears in her eyes, we're just glad we can give her the game ball. That's great coaching. He took something that I have no idea how you make NWI care about the Houston Texans or Chiga Conquo care about the Houston Texans. And he got the team to care. That's great coaching. And so I think that if they're, we've talked about what do you do at the end of the year? And again, beating the Texans on the road would not change a lot for me. But I also don't own the team, so my opinion doesn't count. But I do think the happiness, the joy that the owner feels after winning this game, I do think that will play a role in Brian Callahan keeping his job. Even if she changes out the front office, maybe she does what she did last time and said, well, I want Brian Callahan to be, because you can go get Duke Tobin in Cincinnati since Mike Brown wants to be the general manager. You could go get Duke Tobin, name him general manager. I guarantee you he and Brian Callahan can work together. And Amy goes out of her way to keep the coach. But that, I said on Friday, if you're going to get one, this is the one you want to get because it means more to the one person whose opinion counts. I don't care about the Texans. She does. Although for some reason, I think like the Titans online Twitter community, they seem to care about it because the Texans get on their high horse and they complain about the uniforms all the time, saying, we want the uniforms back. And I'm always like, I don't care. I mean, I watch the Tennessee Oilers, so I don't give a rat's ass what the city of Houston thinks. The Titans own the logo. It is the Titans throwback. It should be the Titans throwback. I don't know where they get off in thinking this, but the Texan fans get so, pissy about it that I think online Titans community gets all mad about it too. I mean, the thing I don't like is I just don't like when Titans coaches wear Oilers gear when it's not the Oilers week. Other than that, I don't care. That's the only thing I have a somewhat opinion on. Tighten up 0828 on the YouTube chat says Hannah McNair is not gorgeous. What a weird thing to say. Ian, do you feel comfortable in backing me up about Hannah McNair, the wife of Cal McNair, the owner of the Texans?
I don't know if I would go as far as gorgeous.
Oh, she's a babe. What are you talking about?
I mean, I think she is very fine looking, but yes.
I am a humongous Hannah McNair fan. And, it's not bad that the owner talks a little trash, gives you a little something to talk about, to be excited, that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, I'm a Hannah McNair fan. Sorry about it. Tighten up. All right, your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, the funniest part of the kind of the Texans meltdown yesterday and somewhat of the aftermath of it. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
You see Nico Collins up top by himself, and he could run those deep in cuts right there.
Mechie in motion. Stroud back in the end zone. He's got to be careful. It's a safety. Wow. Harold Landry. We haven't called his name that often today, but he comes up with a defensive stop of the game. A 5-point ball game, and Tennessee will get the ball.
Landry working against Titus Howard with the bull rush. Stroud thought he could escape, not able to do it, and the Titans defense makes the biggest play of the game.
There you go. That was the moment of truth where, again, the Titans, you knew the Titans were going to win. You knew. Now, I felt pretty certain when Fairbairn missed the field goal that they were going to win, and they picked up like 7 yards on first down and still couldn't pick up a first down, which tells you how bad the offensive line sucks. But let's talk for a second about the Texans. Jared, this is Nashville radio, not Houston radio. Okay. But let's talk about the Houston Texans for a second. What freaking frauds. And I will be the first to admit that I drank the Kool-Aid. Last year, before the start of the season, when everybody was sucking up to the Jacksonville Jaguars, anointing Trevor Lawrence at number one, saying that, it was like, he's the next Joe Burrow. I was like, oh, let's see him do some Joe Burrow stuff before we do that. I didn't buy it. Didn't buy it. Not for a second. Then when Jacksonville didn't make the playoffs, I looked at everybody like, aha, I told you. This year with the Texans, though, I was like, no, that team's good. D'Amico's a good coach. Bobby Slowick's a good coordinator. You'll get year 2 with C.J. Stroud and Slowick together. He's got weapons at receiver. They traded for Stephon Diggs. They've got a franchise left tackle. They've added Joe Mixon. They went out in free agency. They signed Danielle Hunter and Danico Autry. And you know how much I love Danico. Will Anderson, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He returns. Now, I was not an Azeez Al-Shaair fan. And I still think he's the same guy he was with the Titans. He's a day late and $1 short to everything. I also am not a huge Henry Toa fan. I wasn't a very big fan of his in college, but I'm really not a fan of his in the NFL either. But again, Stingley and Petrie, and I thought the Texans were legit. I think they have the most underrated kicker in the NFL, and he missed a 28-yarder to tie the game yesterday. But that Texan team, they suck. Like, I watched them yesterday. They got the gift of a pick six, the gift of an 80-yard return, the gift of a muffed punt, and they couldn't do anything with it. The Texans may win the division by default because everybody in this division stinks. But right now, I'm just going to tell you, Houston is one and done. I don't care if it is, I'm trying to think who would go in there. I don't care if it is Pittsburgh. I don't care if it is the Chargers. I don't care who it is. They're going into Houston in the wild card weekend, and they're going to win the game 35-13. Houston sucks. And I have to say this. I enjoyed John McClain's Twitter during the game. Ian, you know I love John McClain.
Yeah.
But his Twitter was awesome yesterday during the game. I actually thought about having Chase get the AI, the AI software to use McClain's voice to read these out, but I'm just going to read them. Should I do a John McClain voice?
Sure.
I do have a John McClain impression. I'm not going to tell you who John McClain was talking about, but years ago at the Combine, Floyd and I were walking around, and McClain said, "Oh my God, Floyd, you should have seen so-and-so. He has gotten so fat." It's one of my all-time favorites. Okay, here you go. McClain. Titans have scored 32 points, a season high. This the first time in 6 games they've scored more than 20. Just a humiliating performance by the Texans. They look like they weren't ready to play this game. The Titans are fired up. A credit to Brian Callahan and his staff. Fans are booing the Texans like crazy, and they should be. They deserve it for this miserable performance against a 2-8 team. I can't do the McClain. Like, McClain's so smooth, on the radio. You talk to McClain and you're like, "John, what do you think about Quinn Ewers in the first round?" "Well, I got a new mock draft up at gallerysports.com and what we're trying to do." And so I can't do it the way he does it, but just go with me. This is not a good Texans team. They've gone from 5-1 to 2-4. They can't even beat a 2-8 team like the Titans that came to Houston averaging 15.2 points over their last 6 games and won 32-27. The Texans had 260 yards, 40 rushing. Mixon carried 14 times for 22, a 1.6 average. But even though the Titans were determined to keep running him, Bobby Slowick kept giving him the ball to get stuffed. The Texans look so bad against the Titans, they're capable of losing at Jacksonville and then getting crushed by Miami at home, KC on the road, and Baltimore at home before closing at Tennessee. By the way, woof! I mean, they got to play the Chiefs in Baltimore. They stink. Oh, my goodness. Fairbairn just missed a 28-yard field goal that would have tied the score. Unbelievable, McLean writes. The Texans' offense stinks in the second half. Titans got a little pressure in the first half and lots in the second. Texans are helpless to stop it. It's just so great. I love all of it. Everybody in the stadium but Bobby Slowick knows Joe Mixon is getting stuffed today. Last 2 carries are 2 yards, no gain, putting Stroud in long situations. Stroud just got sacked for a 10-yard loss. It was quite enjoyable. And again, who's John rooting for? Who knows? John is very close with the Adams Strunk family. And so, again, John ain't doing nothing to get himself in trouble one way or another. But I think McLean's, he's a Houston guy. And McLean's like, you can read how miserable he is. That must be what other teams' fan bases think about my Twitter during the games, although my Twitter's a little bit more like, this guy sucks, that guy sucks, this coach terrible, that kind of thing. So I did enjoy it, though, reading last night John McLean's Twitter. 615-737-1025, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, Stroud's had 4 bad games in a row, 2 of them under 140 yards. One of them might have been under 100 yards passing. I think they're in a slump, to be honest. I think they might just not be very good. Like maybe they weren't as good as we thought last year with the way they played at the end of the year. Again, they had a 4th place schedule. So, and I don't know what that meant they got instead of who you got with the 2nd place schedule. But for instance, like you played Cincinnati and they probably got Cleveland, with a 4th place schedule. Well, you get Joe Burrow and they get the remains of Deshaun Watson. Caleb in Gallatin says, what else would you need to see from Levis to want to give him another shot at being the starter next year? I was just thinking it would be nice to not have to draft another quarterback and use our first pick to fill another area of need. Also, that means not having the number 1 pick be so crucial to the fans. Number one, the number 1 pick is always going to be crucial for the fans. I was talking about this with Derek and Chris yesterday on the award-winning pregame show, and we were talking about the misses in the draft. And it's like, well, they missed on Isaiah Wilson, and they missed on Caleb Farley, so it's a good thing they hit on J.C. Latham. And I'm like, yes, but Isaiah Wilson was taken with the 28th pick. J.C. Latham was taken with the 7th pick. There is a big difference between the two. Just look at a draft value trade chart, and you will see that 28 resembles nothing like number 7. Every year, we're told, people around the league say that there's only 22 first-round graded prospects in this draft. So there is a difference. But if a guy is taken in the first round, then the fans have expectations. Like, again, 28 is closer to 38 where Tavondre Sweat was taken than 7 where J.C. Latham was taken. But if it's a first-round pick, it's always crucial to the fans. That said, let's not get too excited about discounting a quarterback because that's what everybody wants to do. That's what happened when you drafted Levis in the 2nd round, which was we got a first-round quarterback in the 2nd round. Right, but there's a reason that those teams passed. You don't get bonus points going into a game for having a 2nd-round quarterback. Your quarterback was taken with the 2nd pick of the 2nd round. Their quarterback was taken with the 2nd pick of the 1st round. You didn't get a 5-point boost going into the game. But Jared, the contracts are different, and the Texans are still spending $32 million more on their team than you are. it doesn't necessarily make a difference. So I understand, again, we've got Levis. It's convenient. It's here. But I need to see Levis not turn the ball over. He had a pick 6. I need to see Levis not, run into sacks. Skyler said Stroud looked like Levis from weeks 1 through 3. I thought Stroud looked like Marcus Mariota in year 3 yesterday. And that's a scary thing if you're the Texans. I thought he looked like Mariota when Mariota started to regress. Because Stroud still got talent, and we all know it. But that interception he threw to Brownlee, he hit him right in the hands. That reminded me of Mariota at Arizona. List of quarterbacks since 2000. This is from Dylan. List of quarterbacks since 2000 who were sacked 8 times with a 75% completion percentage and won the game. Will Levis. That's it. That's the list. Well, that's a very narrow kind of subset group we're talking about there. Josh texts in and says, do you have any thoughts on what came out about the Mike Malarkey and Ian Rapaport situation? I wonder if that's why it made it seem like the Titans lied before firing Mike Malarkey. Okay, so if you weren't keeping up, last week Mike Malarkey did a podcast. And in the podcast, Mike Malarkey told the Jacksonville radio host, I actually think it was a Jacksonville radio show, and Malarkey said, on my way out the door in Tennessee, I knew I was getting fired, and so just to screw with him, I called Ian Rapaport, who he called Ian Rapaport. I called Ian Rapaport. I said, hey, I'm getting a contract extension, and I want you to be the one to break the news. Rapaport tells the country, the insider, Rapaport tells the country, Mike Malarkey's getting a contract extension, so it ends up everywhere. The Titans were doing no such thing. They were going to fire him. And Malarkey said that when he got called into the office, they said, yeah, you're fired. And that they had a good chuckle about it. He had a good chuckle about it just to screw with the owner, screw with the GM, etc. Ian Rapaport did respond back. Ian, do we have this cut?
Yes, we do.
This was Ian Rapaport's response to Mike Malarkey making a complete and total fool out of Ian Rapaport and his lack of professionalism. Here's what he said.
That was the Brendan Austin show on Action Sports. Those guys yucking it up. Pretty funny for them, I guess, if you don't care about accuracy and taking someone's reputation and rubbing it in the mud. Everyone said Mike Malarkey's a good guy. He always was to me. I liked him. Thought it was very respectable. That is not cool. That's not funny. I was a younger reporter then, and the amount of online hate and ridicule I got because Mike Malarkey thought it'd be funny to get back at his old boss, it was not fun. So I don't have much to say. I don't blame Mike Malarkey, but I want to. And that was not cool, and that was not funny, and we should treat truth better than that.
Mike? I agree with you. I also think that Ian has learned lessons we've all learned lessons along the way, but modern day Ian would not have been a fallen victim to that. You learn hard lessons along the way. That was one of them. Yeah, not cool. I get it.
Supposed to be a trusted source.
See, I'm sitting here and I'm like biting my lip because you're right. Not cool. Don't do that. Don't lie to reporters. Don't make them look bad. But it happened to Ian, so like it's a little funny. It's one of those things like we got enough distance now. It's been like 6 years. It's like it's tiny bit funny.
Maybe.
Okay, so even there, Ian, could you tell Garofalo and Pelissero, like they know the game, so they know Rapaport's the one who screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, here's what happened. Mike Malarkey called Ian Rapaport, said, I'm getting a contract extension. I want you to be the one to break it. And because these insiders, they're beholden to who gives them the information, Ian Rapaport said, okay, and put it out there. When you are a trusted insider. By the way, we're not that. We are proudly a one-source show. But they, at that level, are not supposed to be that. You're supposed to, like I heard TD and Joe ripping Rapaport on Friday about this. You have to call the Titans and get a second source to confirm it. So, again, if the first source says, hey, Malarkey's getting a contract extension, Rapaport calls the Titans, and he should have good enough relationship, and they confirm it or deny it. He didn't do that. That's bad reporting, bad journalism. It's lazy. And both Garofalo and Pelissero know it, but they're like, Rapaport's their boy and they're on the show, so they don't want to throw him. But you hear Garofalo saying, like, Ian's learned from that. He'll never do that again. But for Ian Rapaport, like, if I was Ian Rapaport and I heard Mike Malarkey tell that story, I would just not even acknowledge its existence. And instead, he's got to double down on it. Buddy, you screwed up. And it wasn't because you were a young reporter. I did the math. You were 37 years old. If you were an NFL player, that'd be the oldest guy in the league. It's not funny. Those guys are laughing, but it's not funny to give a reporter bad information. I will never forget what Floyd told me. He said his favorite part of the NFL draft was knowing that reporters' jobs are to report. He was like, look, a reporter's job is to report. So if I tell the reporter that I'm taking the linebacker when I'm taking the receiver, he's going to report that I'm taking the linebacker. The Malarkey felt the same way. That's what he was doing. I love it. On his way out the door, he knows he's not getting the head coaching job. He throws up to the Titans ownership, GM John Robinson trying to get him, and to the whole media conglomerate of the NFL. And you can tell how personally Ian Rapaport took that. You should. You screwed up, buddy. But as far as the Titans lying, the Titans put out a statement from Amy Adams Strunk saying that Mike Malarkey was the coach, quote unquote, moving forward. So they lied. That had nothing to do with what Malarkey did. 615-737-1025. We've got a trade and a game day. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. Predators tonight on the road at the Prudential Center, taking on the New Jersey Devils, 6 o'clock puck drop. And right here on 102.5 The Game. And the big news today, the Predators have traded Philip Tomasino to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 2027 fourth-round pick. And it was funny because somebody sent me kind of all this info on, hey, just because we gave up on Tomasino, a first-round pick, doesn't mean that we don't have more first-rounders on the way, and 3 first-round picks this year, and an extra first-rounder in David Edstrom that we acquired in the deal with Yaroslav Askarov. And so the pipeline is bright. Fedor Svechkov made his debut the other day, blah, 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 whatever. I thought Tomasino kind of sucked, and I was kind of over it. And so when I saw the news today that Tomasino got traded, it wasn't like a, what? It would be like if you told me that Traylon Burks wasn't going to work out for the Titans. I got it. We don't need to try anymore. I got it. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. As far as that's concerned, I did say on Friday's program that if the Predators lost to Winnipeg on Saturday night, that I would give up on the season, but the Predators played their best game of the year, a stay of execution, and now they get New Jersey before returning home on Wednesday, a quick little one-day trip. According to MoneyPuck.com, if they win, they've got a 19% chance of making the playoffs. Robbie Stanley told me today he thinks the Predators are going to make the playoffs. I don't know, but what I will tell you is this. They need to, at some point, show us that they've turned a corner. It doesn't do you any favors to win on Saturday to lose. So what they got to do is they got to get on a heater. They got to start winning 3 in a row and then lose and then win 4 in a row. Ian, I believe Robbie has the pregame show.
That is correct.
Robbie's up next with the pregame show. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2 o'clock.